Hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. The topic for the webinar today is the top dilemmas in building an efficient mobile testing strategy solved. This webinar by Perfecto Mobile and Cognizant is going to be a 1-hour webinar. You are all on mute currently, and we encourage you to use a question panel which you have available for you. We will be addressing all of your questions throughout the webinar, and we will be following up with you after the webinar. Last comment from my end before we start, we are conducting a short survey at the end of this webinar, and I would really like you all to spend a few seconds and just fill the webinar, so it will help us in the next session. So. Just before we start, I'll introduce the agenda and speakers for today. Today's webinar around top dilemmas in building the efficient mobile testing strategy will be conducted by myself, Eran Kinsbruner. I'm the Director of Product Marketing and the Mobile Quality Evangelist at Perfecto Mobile. And with me we have Clayton Simmons from Cognizant. He's the Director of Mobility Testing with Cognizant, one of our leading partners which is working with us closely in dozens of mobile projects in the industry with large enterprises. And we would like to share with you from our great experience how we deal with some of the top dilemmas which we come across in the industry around mobile quality, mobile testing, maximizing mobile testing ROI, and eventually building a sustainable and dynamic architecture for mobile testing, which will last for your upcoming versions and releases. Also with us, we have Joe Alfonsi, which is a senior system engineer in Perfecto Mobile, and he has prepared for you a really cool demo of a cross-platform mobile test automation, which actually ties into one of our top dilemmas around the mobile testing ROI, which deals with the mobile test automation, of course. So you will be able to see at the end, at the last part of this webinar, a really good demo of a native mobile application running on 2 different devices with great challenges being solved by the platform itself. Just for those of you who do not know what is Perfecto Mobile or what we are doing, so Perfecto Mobile is a mobile cloud company. We offer a mobile cloud platform enabling testers to remotely access devices from all over the world connected to different networks, allowing you to do manual testing, functional automation, performance testing and monitoring. We integrate and connect with dozens of tool solutions. We are the solution chosen by HP as the preferred and only mobile test automation. We, together with HP, developed the UFT Mobile, and this is what you will see in the demo towards the end of this webinar. We also integrate with continuous integration system for also continuous quality and regression testing, and many more. If you would like to get more insight and information, you can contact us through our LinkedIn profile, our website, www.perfectomobile.com, or simply contact me and Clay. We will share with you the contact details during the webinar itself. So let's start, and just before we start, a short announcement. Perfecto Mobile and Cognizant are going to run 2 cool and interesting roadshows in the next 2 weeks, and those of you who are online, who are either from the east side in the U.S., New Jersey, can find us also in the roadshow with Cognizant and leading enterprise customers on October 8th, or in San Francisco on October 10th. And details will be published on our website, but if you'd like to save your seat, it's free, of course. You can contact me or Clay after the webinar or throughout the webinar, and we'll provide you all the details to register for these roadshows. We can assure that you see a lot of great content, demos, and plenty of information. So let's start. In today's agenda, we have picked, we know that the mobile market is really challenging and causes a lot of frustrations and dilemmas to the QA managers, CIOs, CMOs, so whether. We have decided to pick these three dilemmas, which we find as the really top issues which enterprises and other organizations deal with today. One of them is the methodology of picking the right and sufficient mobile handsets for your project. We hear it all the time. How many devices should I pick? On which operating system should I test just to get the sufficient coverage for my mobile application? We know what happens when you test on less devices than you should. What happens at the App Store, what happens from your customers who uses your application and find that your application is not running perfect or properly on a specific device. So we'll touch this dilemma in the first part of this webinar. The second dilemma deals with how you maximize your mobile testing return on investment. And finally, we'll talk about building a sustainable and efficient mobile testing strategy, which will last throughout the ALM, the Application Lifecycle Management, meaning from development throughout functional testing, non-functional testing of performance, usability, and production. So plenty of stuff for us today, so let's get started. With regards to mobile market, the mobile industry, we know that we have to deal with multiple challenges. I'm not talking about the dilemmas, I'm talking just about the environment, the framework, and the scope with which QA managers, testers, need to deal with today. The industry introduces a lot of existing and upcoming new mobile operating systems. We see that we have the Android, which is a fragmented mobile operating system. It's open source. It causes even more challenges to the tester. We'll show soon a slide talking how really is this Android operating system fragmented. We have the iOS, which also, together with Android, takes most of the market share today, and recently with this week announcement of iOS 7 also increases even more the challenges, the fragmentation, the backward compatibility of your mobile application. So the impact of this iOS 7 on your mobile application is yet to be known even to you guys if you have a mobile application running today in the market for iOS. I can assure you that your test or your challenges just grew even more. We have some new players, Tizen, BlackBerry 10, Selfish, and we have the Windows Phone, which is going. All of these take part in the matrix itself and the challenges. We have various of OEMs and device vendors, which also takes significant part in your decision, running on multiple screen resolution and supporting multiple types of mobile applications. Many of our enterprise organizations, which we come to, not only deploy and develop one application, they have several applications. Some of them are native, some of them are hybrid, some of them are only web. Each of these definitely needs to be tested on various devices, various browsers, and it needs to be tested properly on a variety of devices and operating systems as well. And all of your investment, and we'll touch in the third dilemma on this point, needs to be deployed, delivered fast, and you need to be able to leverage from your testing investment in the first phases of your application throughout the performance and the production itself, and we'll touch on this point. So, Clay, welcome and good morning to you as well. Let's start this webinar.
Sure. Good morning, Eran, and good morning to all those in the call today. So in addition to the complexity that you've mentioned in the previous slide, we've also seen a significant shift in terms of the enterprise consumerization. Today, we see about 34% of the global workforce is wanting to be mobilized. 66% of workers are wanting to access work and personal information from company devices. 90% of the customers will have corporate applications on personal devices even by the end of this year. In addition to those statistics, it's interesting to see iOS is really making inroads within large enterprise organizations as well. For instance, the iPad has been deployed and tested by about 65% of the Fortune 500 companies today. And the iPhone itself has done about 80%. So as you can see, we have this kind of convergence of, I'd say, a very complex ecosystem, as you mentioned before, and also the consumerization of enterprise. Interesting to see, too, how we're using our devices. In fact, I would probably say that just looking at this list, I've probably already done 4 of these even before this webinar began. But it's interesting to note some of the device enablers like GPS for location-based services, near-field communications, and security maybe for mobile health monitoring and mobile banking, has really begun to create an impact on the way we use our phones and also the way we test our phones, and ultimately creating more awareness in terms of application development and application testing.
Yeah. Thank
you. Let's go to the next slide here.
So,
so this is what we are seeing as businesses mature within their mobile application story. So we really like to call this like mobile 1.0. This is where we're just mobilizing things, mobilizing the web, mobilizing the way in which we communicate beyond just text messaging, using Twitter and Facebook Messenger and FaceTime, and all these other new capabilities, right, that have brought us together to communicate differently. In addition, I would say mobile 1.0 really began to have large enterprise organizations think about deploying mobile applications to differentiate themselves. Banks really started doing this. They began to develop mobile applications to be different. Hey, you do mobile banking, you don't. And so that was kind of where we began. We're seeing a transition, though, where transformation is happening with business processes to accommodate mobile applications. We're also seeing large enterprise organizations begin to look and prioritize securing their corporate data and also maximizing their workforce efficiencies. And this is what we're seeing today. And then as we go further into the spectrum, within a maturity cycle of any large enterprise, we begin to see them look more at innovation and even recreation. They're developing purpose-built applications that are specific to the device capabilities. They're specific to maybe some users or regions and things like this. We're also seeing a shift from differentiation to dependency, where in 1.0 they developed an application to be different. Well, now all banks have mobile applications, right? And so now we're seeing enterprise organizations develop applications to have the users become dependent on their mobile applications to where they need that application on a daily basis. And ultimately, this generates a significant increase in business and revenue potential.
Right, right. So with all that in mind, let's just talk about the first dilemma. And I think that in the previous slide you have seen the majority of OEM vendors, the different operating systems with this week announcement and even growing. So how do you actually test and choose the right devices, the right operating system for you and for your project? So
that's right. That brings us to our first dilemma here, selecting the right and sufficient mobile handset for your project.
Exactly. And talking about Android, and Android today takes almost I think 70 or even more % of the market share globally, and you can understand why just from last year, from almost 4,000 devices running on Android, Android operating system, we have grown to almost 12,000 running devices. So this is like huge growth of the Android fragmentation, if you will, and you do not need to run this only on one version of the Android, because you know that version 2.3 and 4.1 and 4.2 are still running and still supported in the market. Recently, Google started to deploy 4.3, the Jelly Beans, and we already hear about KitKat 4.4. So also the mobile operating system fragmentation is continuously growing as well. So you need to take some considerations before you decide which devices to take, and it requires some risk-based analysis And I think, Clay, if you can just walk us through this consideration, which you actually run daily in your project with Cognizant, right?
That's right, Eran. Yeah, in fact, here at Cognizant, we really look at several key parameters that we consider as we begin to help customers find this target list of devices. I guess the first group is the device itself, the considerations associated to the device itself. We look at the leading manufacturers, HTC, Samsung, Apple, of course, always sit on top of the list. We also look at the types of devices to be considered, whether it be a smartphone type application or a tablet or even a phablet specific type application. Those are all indicators that we have to take into consideration. Device capabilities have to be factored in, like what does the application need in terms of hardware requirements? Does it need specific GPS requirements, Bluetooth requirements, and the like? So that's kind of lumped into this I would say this first group called device considerations. We also have to look at the market analytics. The market share of these devices that are based on numbers of devices sold. What devices are downloading applications and hitting specific web servers. Certain websites and apps tend to be used by Android and vice versa for Apple. So we have to look at that as well. And popularity based on market region. iOS dominates here in the U.S., but in other parts of the world it doesn't. And so we have to look at that as well. And then we also have to look at what's going to come in terms of future devices. Obviously, we have been anticipating Apple's iPhone 5S and 5C now for the past 3 or 4 months, right? And so we've got to also look and anticipate what's going to come in Q4 this year and next. And then the last section here on the left is this network considerations and platforms. We have to look at specific RF requirements for specific regions of business and test. Multinational organizations who only do business in the U.S. and say China, they might have a unique mix of devices versus businesses that are only doing business here in the U.S. And so we have to really kind of look and weigh that in. Now, that's our target parameter set. The Cognizant works with the customer to deliver, but the most important thing is this funnel, right? All of these are funneled in, and we have to validate our assumptions against the parameters that are defined by the business. In fact, I was in an interesting meeting just 2 or 3 weeks ago where we had put together a target device, and the business came back and said, actually, we've got to prioritize iOS even more so than some of the other devices you have. And of course, our market analytics and our device considerations and all the other inputs that we have contributed had kind of mentioned otherwise. But he had made a note that his business, the people that actually spend the most money are in fact iOS users specific to his business. So we certainly have to take into consideration the business requirements as well. Once we have those funneled in, then we're able to put together a very solid target list that can be used on-site, onshore, or even offshore. Next slide.
I think that just as a comment to your last consideration around popular platform and network, we all came across what happened with iPhone 4S and the 3G network bug, which was relevant only to iOS 6.1 for the iPhone 4S. iPhone 5 running iOS 6.1 was not impacted by this bug. So deciding this, using this device selection framework, and we'll show you immediately some figures, is imperative, and you need to take into consideration also the network. So testing only on Wi-Fi, for example, is definitely not sufficient, because otherwise you are not testing for your end user real experience and performance against 3G networks, 4G, and so forth. So talking about what Clay just presented, Perfecto and Cognizant, we would define this model as the triple M, the mass, major, and market model for selecting, choosing your sufficient amount of devices. And when I'm talking devices, I'm talking about smartphones, for tablets, you need to apply the same rules here. And we know that tablets and phablets as well are also invading the enterprises and are key devices in the market today. So segment for smartphone and phablets, and for tablets you need to do the same. From our industry analysis and from our experience running dozens and hundreds actually of projects in the enterprises, we understood that for the mass devices, and these are the devices which the development team and the QA team are starting to use and run from the first phases of your mobile application development cycle. And for these devices, you must have, because they are running nightly, for sanity, for unit testing, you need to apply automation. So we understood that if you choose between 6 to 8 devices in this first development phase, extending when you move to the beta phase, which is execution of regression, interoperability, and later on performance and stress testing, you need to add 12 more devices. These devices also running throughout your automation framework will assure you that you also meet your deadlines and get sufficient coverage of almost like 80% of the market if you choose the devices correctly. And the consideration for choosing the devices were just presented to you by Clay. The market share of these devices, the capabilities of these devices, screen sizes, etc. Okay? For the production phase, you do not really need to apply automation for these devices, but if you really want to get like the top coverage for your mobile application for the market, you would need to add actually 30 or 40 more devices on which you can do some basic testing for compatibility and do some monitoring on these devices. But these are the devices which are less commonly used in the market, and these are, I would say, nice to have. And I would also encourage you to take into account, and Clay also mentioned it, that you have a change rate per quarter of 1 or 2 devices, at least changes per quarter, and these devices become either obsolete or move to the market devices bucket. So you need to continue and manage and govern your devices throughout your application life cycle, because this market is dynamic, as we know, and things change. So it's not a static list of devices. You need to continue and change your devices, but these are the figures which you need to apply. We have a white paper just talking about how to use it. You can find it on our knowledge base in the Perfecto Mobile website. Talking about additional consideration, Clay, let's look into the different types of devices and how to use them.
That's great. Yeah, in fact, Eran, so we figured out now our target list of devices, and you've categorized them nicely in the previous slide in terms of when to use those devices. But I think we can all agree that it's not just the devices that are key here, and we don't end up just using just the devices to perform all of our QA testing requirements. We also have platform simulators, and we have cloud environments too, right, beyond physical devices. So we look at how all of these interplay with each other. And first looking kind of at the physical devices, because that's what we've been talking about here. In a perfect world, we would just buy every single device and have every single subscription and do manual testing and guarantee 100% test coverage, right? But we know that that's not feasible. It's not possible to manage all of those physical devices. They're expensive. The subscriptions are expensive. To pay staff members to inventorize and manage them is very expensive. And so that's just not really practical. Not to mention, as you had stated before, I think you made a really good point, that these devices have a shelf life. And it's uncertain if the mix that you chose maybe, say, 6 months ago is still relevant from a market perspective. And so you've got to constantly keep updating this pool of devices. And so when you look at also the platform and simulators, they too have pros and cons. They're cheap. They're free, basically, even so. They're fast. But they're somewhat inconsistent, right? I mean, you can't really guarantee that your application is going to work if you've just tested on an emulator with, say, an HTC One or a Galaxy 3. these device manufacturers are adding unique layers to the ROM packages, as we all know, and it significantly changes the overall function and capabilities of these devices. And so it kind of takes us to this cloud solution. It's flexible. You can log in anytime, day or night, from anywhere in the world. It's expansive with a library of devices, and they continue to accumulate new devices as they are released into the marketplace. From an automation perspective, to manage cross-device automation, even cross-platform automation. I think Eran will probably see some of that later in this webinar. This ultimately reduces our total time and cost. But they can be expensive, right, too. And there's significant investment in terms of integrating into larger test management systems. So from a Cognizant perspective, we really try to look at the combinational approach. How can we combine all of these to maximize our test coverage, to reduce the overall risk of defect leakage, and ultimately reducing the overall cost of test ownership? I think that's where it's key, is looking at how we can make a combinational effort exist here. And that actually brings us to the next slide, and the next dilemma actually, Eran, is the maximizing mobile tests and return on investment. Do you want to begin taking us through that?
So, and when talking about maximizing your mobile testing return on investment, and we know that we have the fragmentation, we know that the market is dynamic, we are not new in this market, and we know that we need to evolve and we need to grow. However, this market is complex, and you need, when you're building your automation, deciding which devices to test, etc., you need to take into account the various platforms and networks. We also need to take into account when looking in automation and ROI and on shorter ALM cycle, maybe continuous integration, maybe a cross-platform automation, as you will see later on in this webinar, because if your test cycle, either manual or automation, is not a cross-platform, for example, then you can imagine that you will not keep up with this ever-changing market. You will not be able to release your application to the market on even the relevant devices. So in today's world, automation for mobile becomes a necessity. Otherwise, the mobile just continue to grow fast, and the testing which you're doing on devices which are being launched today might not be relevant in 3 or 4 months from today. And I can assure that this will be the case. We see it every day. So talking about continuous QA, we know that the development team can use the triple-M devices throughout the unit testing phase, but with serious and robust automation, plugging into your continuous integration, Jenkins, for example, will definitely allow you to reduce the time, reduce the cost and resources, and run your test in an unattended way. I would like to share with you now a short case study, which if you'd like to get all of the details for this case study, you can read more. We have on our website, in the knowledge base, help.perfectomobile.com, the full case study from one of the largest top U.S. banks in the U.S. today. And this bank was trying to run 4,800 tests in an unattended manner on a large variety of devices. Before we started working with the bank, he was unable to run the automation, and he developed the scripts and everything, but running them overnight was almost impossible without using manual oversight. So there were so many interrupts and events, and we talk about interoperability all the time with regards to mobile testing, incoming events, errors, and everything which break the automation. So the automation needed to be really smart and allows to put relevant checkpoints, ignoring issues like pop-ups and everything, to make the flow of running your mobile automation seamlessly and unattended. The test cycle itself took almost between 16 and 20 days, which is huge. You can imagine how much it takes to just add one more device or one more mobile operating system. We can take the last week example of iOS 7. Running this on a new operating system would also take like almost 20 days. After implementing and using our triple-M approach, our mobile cloud automation, running the test on the cloud, building a device laboratory, and running the automation in a wise way, in a continuous and unattended way, this large bank organization, QA team, was able to result in 90% cycle time reduction. It takes like almost between 24 and 48 hours to run the full cycle, and the cost saving was around 40K per each test cycle, which is huge. Okay, this is real fact from the industry today, showing the value of proper cross-platform mobile test automation with proper device selection. And we have this experience today with Cognizant. We are implementing such projects on a daily basis. So I encourage you to approach us. If you are, as mentioned in the beginning, going to be in the roadshows in New Jersey or San Francisco, you can talk with some of our existing customers and hear from cases like what we are seeing in this site right now. So moving to another aspect of the automation or the ROI, you not always need to go to automation, but when you do want to implement automation in your enterprise, Clay, what are the considerations from your experience?
Sure. Yeah, that's there's a few here, in fact, in this particular slide, and I think that case study that you had in the previous slide is a great impetus to talk about automation. You know, we get a lot of questions from customers. So when should we automate? When's the right time? And should we be automating? And so we really have kind of begun to turn this idea into questions back to the customer and let them determine for themselves if automation is right for them. So we look at questions like reusability. Is there a significant amount of redundancy in test execution? We look at it from a time perspective. Is the requirement for shorter development cycle times becoming more and more important to the organization? We also look at the applications. Are the applications increasing specifically within their development cycles in terms of overall complexity? We look at reliability as well. Manual testing is still done with human intervention, and so sometimes humans make mistakes. And so if we have scripts that are well written, we can reduce the overall errors and prone to errors in terms of the manual test. So we're able to really deliver more reliable testing. And then cost. You know, the overall cost that you mentioned in the last slide, there is a return on automation investment, reduced execution time, and ultimately reduced manual test, reduces total cost. And then the last one I have here is agility, and this one's somewhat interesting because I think we're getting to see it become more and more prevalent in large enterprise organizations where their businesses are changing midstream in their development cycles. And so instead of having to rewrite test scripts and test cases for functional-based testing, maybe it's just usability that has changed. Maybe it's just an added feature. And so you can tweak those scripts that have already been written and developed to address the new business requirements that are constantly evolving and changing. We'll hop over to the next slide here, Eran, and we'll talk a little bit about how we select the automation tools. And so, again, we kind of go back to the customer and say, kind of qualify their environment and determine what their needs are. And some of the questions that we ask are, you know, what type of application are they developing? Are they needing to test on? Is it multi-based, where it's using both native and web-based, or is it hybrid, And there are tools, right, specifically that support those cross-platforms I've mentioned before. Hardware-based decisions. Is the application going to run on specific devices? And do those tools support those specific devices? Integration-based decisions. Do we need to integrate with Quality Center or IBM's RQM? And then how are the scripts going to be supported from an operations perspective? Are emulators supported? And are there requirements for like DOM or object-based recognition? So these are some of the questions as well. And then I think also another really important one for automation tool selection is this sharing and collaboration. A lot of the automation tools are now cloud-based, and so we can develop public and private cloud specific for these customers. Two, a lot of the customers now have a very decentralized QA organization. They have testers on site. They might have additional testers onshore or same time zone, and they might even have testers offshore. So automation through collaboration is also very important, and we have to choose a tool assuming that that scenario exists within that enterprise customer that meets those requirements. And then lastly is performance. This is an area that is gaining more and more traction as large enterprise customers mature. They really get and understand and can execute very well in functional tests, but performance tests and security tests are new areas, and they're very interested in achieving in those areas. And so we have to find tools. If those areas are important, we have to find tools that support both functional and non-functional requirements like that. And we'll go actually to the next slide here, and I want to talk a little bit about the return on these investments. Because as you know, some of these tools are not free, and they can be investments to large enterprise organizations. You know, as a global leader in mobility QA, here at Cognizant, we put together such studies for customers that help weigh in cost-benefit analysis of these costs that I'm talking about versus the benefit, the cost savings, as I've noted here in the lower part of the chart. And so some of these costs are startup costs, getting the tools, getting the equipment, getting the people trained on these tools, developing the scripts, managing the scripts, integrating the scripts into larger QA systems management tools, like I had mentioned with QC and RQM. And so there's costs associated with all of this. But there's also cost savings, significant cost savings, as you had mentioned just 2 or 3 slides ago, Eran. Reduced manual testing is one. Faster test cycles is another. Quicker release cycles, and ultimately quicker go-to-market on these applications are all very important. And so on the chart above, it's really more illustrative, so it's not really designed to be taken literally, but it does pictorially give kind of a perspective of when to automate. In this particular case, we see that the break-even is achieved at the application's 5th development release cycle. And so early on, if we can achieve that break-even point, ultimately it behooves the organization, right, to automate. If we were to achieve break-even later on, it still might benefit the enterprise. It still might have benefit over cost, but there's just more question marks that we need to ask. Like, is this particular application going to continue to be versioned? Right? Maybe a new version will come out, a new iteration will come out, and still some of the base code, some of the base functionality will remain the same. And so, again, the idea here is, I think the net of this slide is that it's best to start automation early. The earlier you can start automation, and you can begin to develop and create and maintain these test QA assets, the more it will be worth the organization further on down the road. And I'll hand it back over to you.
Clay. Very good point, Clay. And I think that also, as you mentioned in this slide, leaving some room for manual testing is also crucial because of the interoperability testing and other complex scenarios which we also need to take into account. But definitely, the sooner you implement your automation, definitely you'll succeed to grow towards performance testing and monitoring and more. So rushing to the third demo, because we are short in time and we really want to move to the demo, is around building the sustainable and efficient mobile testing strategy. So I'll run this 1 and 2 slides quite fast, so we'll have plenty of time for the demo. What we have discussed, and I think that this is like a summary of the challenges. We know that we really want to achieve better user experience, because we know that in mobility, end user experience counts. We do want to lower the delivery cost, and we talked about automation and ROI. And we want to release it as fast as possible and integrate as possible with the leading tools and solutions to also cost save from previous investments. But we also need to take into account the challenge of the market dynamics and the growing fragmentation in this market. And I can assure that in the upcoming 6 months, we will see more fragmentation coming from the Microsoft Windows Phone, but we will need to wait and see if this trend evolves. So from the solution and business value perspective, what we understand and recommend is, as a solution, try to leverage managed device cloud, either local cloud, hosted, or public cloud, to complement your device coverage. Use mostly real devices under real network conditions, 3G, 4G. We have discussed the implications of using only emulators, so you also need to use only real devices for your mobile testing, starting from the beta phases of your application. If possible earlier, it's even better. And you need to enable unattended continuous testing with robust automation. Otherwise, your automation will break, and you will lose all of your work which you developed with regard to your automation scripts. If you're able to extend your ALM investment from existing tools such as HP, IBM, Microsoft, and so forth to mobile, it's definitely a right decision for you to cost save on resources, processes, and tools, of course. And we Perfecto definitely, with the support of Cognizant, have the ability to extend your mobile to either HP, IBM, or Microsoft solutions with continuous integration, of course. So it's also doable, and the business value is definitely clear around quality, self-delivery, support, and shrinking the mean time to resolution. If indeed in production you find an issue, by having a robust automation and unattended automation, you can fix this defect and deploy it quickly. Final slide before we move to the demo, Clay, is how to elevate the mobile QA to the mobile center of excellence. So take it away, Clay.
Sure, you bet. And I know we're pressed for time, so I'll just spend just a couple of minutes talking about the end game of mobile QA. And so we kind of begin with a very reactive, siloed mobile QA approach. We begin with common templates, checklists, and guidelines. As we standardize the process, we step up. It enables us to leverage cross-functional support for various testing needs and systems integration. As we move towards this process improvement area, we optimize connectivity and communication to our developer communities, hopefully achieving additional economies of scale. We progress forward. The work we do becomes shared assets that can become centralized across all testing environments, and therefore it brings us more to the centralization, where we further begin to centralize and enforce risk and compliance management. As we move forward, we ultimately become a common governance with well-defined processes across all mobility projects. And in the end game is that the COE becomes a proactive QA unit. It serves as a certification point for the entire enterprise across all engagements relating to mobility. And so that's kind of the pathway to from the reactive to the proactive. Eran. And I think maybe it's next steps to talk about a demo.
So I think that by now we were able to highlight, at least I feel that we were able to highlight the three dilemmas which we face today. And at least for one of the dilemmas around the ROI and automation, I would turn it over now to Joe to show you how implementation of a cross-platform automation can save time, resources, and of course enhance quality when doing it properly. So Joe, it's yours now. We can see your screen. Go ahead. Joe, Paul, you are on mute. I'll see. Joe? Joe, can you please put yourself on, unmute yourself? We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Take it away.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I've got about 10 minutes here, so we're going to move at a very quick pace. But hopefully you'll get a chance to see just a little bit about the solution and how we can address a lot of the things that came up in the great presentation that we just saw. I normally will start off my demonstrations with a quick video. It's only about 15, 20 seconds. And what this shows is this actually shows what our cloud-based solution looks like from within the data center. And what you see here is that where you normally would have your web and your app servers, we have what's called a device docking module where you can actually take real devices, and this is our engineer, it's manned 24/7, 365 days a year, can swap out a device into the cradle and connect it via USB cable. This real device is actually what we'll be using to show you the testing today. So whether it's manual testing or whether it's automated, this is where the devices sit within the cradle, and they're put back within the device docking module and plugged in. Now we have access to this specific device. Okay? So let me go ahead right into the demonstration. What I'm going to do today is I'm actually going to show, we're going to start off with our web-based solution, which is great. One of the questions that came up in the panel was, let me just minimize this screen, was how can you help with offshore testing? So because this is a web-based system, you can access this from across the world. I mentioned the devices and how they're housed in our data center. So as a customer, you would have access to a number of different devices. These are all devices that you could be doing manual and automated testing. So you see here a number of different iPads, a number of different iPhones. This is my demo system. So this is just some system that the solutions engineers and architects at Perfecto use. As a customer, you would select which devices you want. And you could select which operating system, which carrier network you want to do. For today's demonstration, I've got a couple devices that I will usually use. And I'll just bring up, for example, the iPhone 5, and I'll also bring up an Android device. So I'm going to start by talking what the manual testing looks like. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that just because of the time. And then I'm also going to go into the automation and how we actually write the scripts, and how those scripts can be then used to build an efficient test strategy using our script once technology, meaning one script can be written on one device but can run on multiple devices. Okay, so from a manual testing perspective, I got two devices at my ready here, and I can go in here now and I can actually begin interacting with these devices as if it were in my hand. I can do everything from rotating these devices to actually looking in. This actually application doesn't support rotation. But what I can do is I can zoom in, I can reset these devices to see what's happening on the specific devices. And then I can go through my manual testing strategy. We have a record widget here which actually can record your manual test so that if an error does come up during your manual testing, you'd be able to send this off to the research and development group. Okay? Because these are real devices, you could have a call put into these devices, a text message put into these devices during your test. You can install your applications remotely, meaning that you could have an APK or IPA file locally and install that up to our devices in one of our data centers very quickly and very easily. Going back to the question about collaboration, obviously when you've got a group of devices in our cloud, they can be accessed from here in the States or from India. It's really a nice feature, especially when you have an offshore element, because these devices you'll maximize the use of these devices. They're not sitting in a locker in a desk somewhere in New York or in Bangladesh. They're available for everybody. We can also help you to baseline these applications and devices. So one of the challenges we see with a lot of our customers is that they've got a desk full of devices that they use. When I pick up that device to do manual or automated testing, I have no idea what's happened on that specific device. So by baselining the device, you can decide which applications are installed on it. You can also baseline the factory settings of that specific device. So every time you pick up a device or go in there, you know exactly what you're getting. Okay. You can also share these sessions. So you can actually go in here and you can actually see there's a share feature here. I can send a URL to somebody who actually is able to see my manual test session as I'm doing it. So this is helpful from a collaboration standpoint, but also from a customer support standpoint. If a business owner or an end user is having a problem, you could send them this URL, and they could help you walk through what their problem was. Okay. So that's just a little bit about. We can also capture information. We can do screenshots during manual testing, grab device logs off of the systems, and also capture device vitals, which is very important. So these are some of the device vitals we can capture during your testing: battery information, CPU, memory, bytes in, bytes out. And then you can correlate this with your manual or automated testing. Okay. So what I'd like to do now is I'm just going to show you what scripting looks like from our native environment. We'll actually do the scripting within QTP, or Unified Functional Testing. Okay. So when I go to the Automation tab here, what you'll see here is I'm still within the same UI, just a different tab, and my devices are available to begin scripting. All the scripting is done here using a widget-based system. So I want you to take a look at this, because this is going to look very familiar when we open up QTP. Okay? So let me just close this device. I do want to show what that looks like. I'm going to open up. I have UFT, Unified Functional Testing 11.5. We support QTP and UFT. It's important to note that as I open this up, if I go to my add-in manager here, you can see there's an add-in called UFT Mobile. Because we are the go-to preferred provider from HP, UFT Mobile is actually going to enable the Perfecto solution from within UFT or QTP. So now when I open up UFT, what you're going to see is, if you're a UFT shop or QTP shop today, it's going to look just like your environment does today, with one addition, and that's this UFT Mobile window. And this gives you the ability to go in, and again, just like we did earlier from within our system, I can go in and select my devices. Okay, so I can go ahead and select, for example, my iPhone device. Okay, when I bring this device up, I can now begin doing all the scripting that I showed you earlier, all widget-based here that you can see. But because we're in the QTP or UFT environment, we have the ability to write our scripts using VB script if we want. So I used to manage a group of automation engineers, and the great thing about the solution is that you could be a business owner with no development background and still be able to write a lot of the scripts yourself. Okay. However, if you are an engineer and you write scripts using VB script within UFT or QTP, you can still do that within our solution today. Okay. So the key here today, and we're very short on time, so I'll be very quick, is how do we write these scripts so that they can run on multiple devices? Okay. So what I'll do is I'll show you very quickly how our scripting works, and this will start to make sense. I come from a company that used to do coordinate-based testing, okay, XY coordinates within a device. Obviously, that's not going to work today because devices are all different, operating systems are different, screen sizes are all different. So what we do here at Perfecto, within our solution, is we give you the ability to go in and interact with our widgets in a couple different ways. So I'm going to write a simple test script here, and then I'm going to show you how we can run a script on two different devices. Okay? So here I can actually go in, and as a best practice, we always bring the device to a home state. Okay, so by clicking the home screen, it adds my script execution to my test script right here. Okay, so to interact with an application on this device, I've got a few different ways I can do it. We provide a hybrid approach. You could select either native or DOM objects within a specific device or application. We also have an OCR technology. Okay, so I can actually go in and I can look for text on the device. So in this case, I'm going to look to open the United application. So I'm going to select button. I'm going to go in here and look for the text United, and I'm going to try that. So now my OCR is scanning the device. Okay, and what you'll see here, if I zoom in here to the left-hand side, is that my United application, it found the text with the green box around it, and it put a bullseye in the target of where it's going to select and click. Okay? So as you can see now, no matter where this icon is, if these other icons are deleted and this moves around, it doesn't matter. My OCR is going to be able to find that, and it's going to be able to execute and click on that specific button. Okay? So now it's going to select my United application and open up my application. Okay? One of the other things that we could do is sometimes text isn't available. Let's say, for example, we want to interact with an image. I can go in here and select an image object. I've got my haystack to the left, and I'm going to look at my needle, which is what I'm going to try to select as far as an image. And all I have to do is crop this specific image that I'm interested in. I can zoom into it, and I can select the image very easily, very quickly, that I want to click on. Okay? Again, I can use my OCR to try to look for that specific image, and you'll see here that the bullseye is right on my flight status image. Okay? From an efficiency standpoint, if this were something that I wanted to use over and over again, I could save this image into a media file, into a repository that my entire team could share. So I wouldn't have to script this every time and crop this image. I would just be able to pull this from my image repository and use this as part of my scripts. Okay? So now when I click OK, it's going to go add that to my script line and bring up the next screen. Okay? I've got the ability here within my widget-based system to do synchronized elements or checkpoints. So I can actually do validation checks to ensure that I can find text on a screen or I find an image on a specific screen. Okay? I can do an edit get, which means I can actually pull or scrape information off the screen. Or an edit set allows me to put, for an example, a flight number here in this specific application. Okay? So because I'm short on time, I'm going to pull up an existing script that I wrote. And this script is going to run on both this iPhone 5, and I have another device that I want to use, which is my Samsung S2. So this is a great example because these are two very different devices, two different operating systems. One's a newer device, one's a much older device. Okay? I'm going to open up my script. Stop recording. And this is for a Guardian life insurance and dental application. Okay? This is a public-facing application. I'm going to open up my script. On the left-hand side, you're going to see the script itself. And on the right-hand side, you're going to see my devices under test. Okay? The great thing is, as I'm writing my scripts, I can have these side by side to ensure that as I'm looking for the text Guardian on one device, I can find it on both. United Airlines, for example, I might want to look for the image instead of the text in this specific situation. A lot of different options as to how you run your scripts. Okay? So all I'm going to do is I'm going to run the same script on both devices. The only thing I have to change in my script is my device ID, so it knows which device to run the script on. So now what I'm going to do is I selected Run. On the left-hand side of the screen, what you're going to see is the windows start to resize themselves, and you're going to see the actual script execution in yellow. And on the right-hand side, you're going to see the device responding to my automation script. So I'm first bringing the device to a home state. I'm clicking on my Guardian icon. You can see it's on two different locations for both devices. And I'm going to go in and select to find a provider. So I'm using the text-based system right now, OCR, which is, again, going to allow me to run on multiple operating systems and multiple devices. Okay? So this is basically going in. It's enabling location services to look for specific dentists in Woburn, Massachusetts. And I put a checkpoint in there to specifically look for a specific dentist that's going to come up. Okay? You also notice that there was a scroll wheel for the iPhone application. Okay? On the Android, it's radio buttons. So different devices are going to present applications in very different ways. And using our Script Once technology gives you the ability to write one script that's going to run across multiple devices. So script creation is going to be much more efficient. But not only that, but script maintenance is also going to be much more efficient because you're only going to have to maintain one script versus maybe 5 to 10 different scripts for each different device. Okay? What I've done now is I've actually added an if statement here at the end as to which device I'm using. In some cases, I will have to branch out. For example, in the iPhone application, there's a back button, so I'm going to click on that. With the Google application, once I start playing it back, you'll see there's not a back button, but actually a key press down here that we use. So we can put that into our script, so this one script will work for both devices very quickly and very easily. Okay? So now what I'm doing is I'm actually bringing this device back to its home state. It's clicking the back button until it finds View ID cards on the screen. You'll see that it now found the View ID cards. Now it's going to generate my report within UFT. So I want to show you quickly what that report looks like. This is my last run results. On the left-hand side, we're going to actually see a summary of my device under test here. And you'll see here that the current run passed. And as I click through this, if I've never seen this script before, I can very quickly and easily see what each step of my execution was doing. I was clicking on Guardian, and then I was looking to find a provider. If I had an error here, I'd have a red X, and I'd be able to see on the screen exactly where the error occurred. Maybe a screen didn't prop up properly. Maybe my script was wrong, and I misspelled something. Okay? Here's my checkpoint. I was looking for Woburn, Massachusetts, and it found it with 100% accuracy. Then I select a plan, and then a PPO, and then my Done button. So you're seeing the entire test execution. You could use this as an asset now for any type of troubleshooting. You could also send a video of this script execution. So not only are you going to see if there was a failure in your automation script, but now you have video to go along with it. So now we can see, or your engineers can see, or your R&D staff can see, every step leading up to a specific failure or degradation on the application. Okay, so now we're able to see an entire replay. Now, I probably don't have time to replay the entire script on the Android. Eran, is that you?
Exactly. So I think that we will need to wrap up in this point. I can assure you guys that this demo definitely runs the same on the Android device. I've seen it, and we will be able to show it to you also in our upcoming roadshows as well. But from time perspective, we really need to wrap things up, and I really appreciate the fact that you're with us even after the time. I'm just going to show you guys the contact information for myself and Clay, which hosted the webinar. So if there is a question which left unanswered, or if you have additional information which you would like to get from us, information about the upcoming roadshows or other kind of questions, feel free to send either myself or Clay an email, and we'll be really happy to get back to you and address all the questions which you have. I appreciate the time you spent with us today and the cooperation in the question panel. Hope to see you in our upcoming events and roadshows. Please spend a few more seconds just to fill out the survey. It is really important for us. And we hope to see you in our upcoming events in the near future. Thank you, Clay, and thank you, Joe, for your fantastic work today. And see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.